It is my pleasure and privilege to be here and to be able to not only participate in this summit, the 7th United in Sustainability Summit. I still remember we were reminiscing yesterday some of the old days back in New York and how many people we had, and now this has grown internationally. This is amazing, great work by the UN FCU's team, and we will continue to grow. Thank you. We have a very exciting and distinguished panel here. As they've been already mentioned, I will ask each one of the panelists to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Very pleased to be here. I will mention first that I'm not a doctor, so I just want to make the things clear. So basically, I'm the director of the Canada Climate Law Initiative, and CCLI is a nationwide initiative that basically does legal research on directors' duties with respect to climate and best practices when it comes to climate governance. So how do corporate boards and boards of trustees should think about climate financial risk and opportunities? And then we leverage that research and then we engage with corporate boards across Canada, from small SMEs to publicly traded companies. And we have engaged in the past with many credit unions.
My name's Karen Miner. I'm the Managing Director of the International Center for Co-operative Management that's located, I say serendipitously, at St. Mary's University that's in Nova Scotia, Canada. But as an international center, we work directly with the Cooperative Credit Union mutual industry globally, all contexts, all types, all sectors, which is somewhat impossible, to really push for leading cooperative management and governance practice that's aligned deeply with what it means to be cooperatives. Personally, I've been at the center since the first International Year of Cooperatives in 2012, still there in the second International Year of Cooperatives, sort of hard to believe when time flies. But from a sustainability perspective, my career, when it started in sustainability and deep sustainability and business and sustainability. And it was only really at the discovery of cooperatives, a little fast forward partway through there, that I realized that our business model really is the best placed model to deliver on deep sustainability. So just leave it at that for now.
I'm Dennis Cunningham. I'm the Manager of Environmental Sustainability at Assiniboine Credit Union. I've been in the role for 15 years. I guess I'm the resource to our board when it comes to environmental sustainability and actions that we can take over, over time and to improve our performance. The role when I started it was sort of one person was managing environmental sustainability, community grants, financial access programs, and it was broken apart into 3 different roles, and a team was formed. We're now an integrated, team, and really part of a driving force of change within the credit union. And I think we're a leader in our jurisdiction in Manitoba in this regard. A number of people that I work with have gone through your program, and I speak very highly of the resources that are provided through the center. And this I think conversation will be quite. It's going to be learning for me as well, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you. We're going to begin with some of the questions here. Let's define terms. And we'll ask Karen to help us with this. What is meant by sustainable governance?
Right. Well, this is just one take on it. I'm sure we all have our own version of this, but I thought I might dial it back just even to what do we mean by governance. Governance, of course, can be defined different ways, but some of the key aspects being, we're setting the direction, we're stewarding organizations, trying to achieve our visions in ways that require action on the ground. We, though in cooperatives, don't just stop at a generic sense of governance in terms of direction setting and who holds power and accountability and all those key buzzwords, but we layer on some of what Leon was getting at in the previous session. We have a distinct model enterprise model, and it therefore really impacts how we come at governance. Governance that needs to be people-centered, needs to be democratic, needs to be participatory, needs to be about members and beyond. So I think we need to keep that in mind as we're having this conversation. Also that we often get stuck just thinking about the one organization we might affiliate most closely with, but cooperative governance, as the layer below just general governance, is then a system of organizations, and therefore there's governance between them. So when I throw in sustainable governance, it's somewhat an unnecessary term, I think, for cooperatives, because if we are aligned, cooperatives, with our enterprise model, as defined by the Statement on Cooperative Identity by the International Cooperative Alliance, which includes a definition, a set of 10 values and 7 principles, then we should have sustainable governance. We should be deeply embedding sustainability in our organizations because we have values such as equity, equality, democracy. We do things collectively. We have principles that operationalize our values and get into things like concern for community and upholding high standards on environment. So I just sort of throw that out there. Like, it's just that that is the perspective I come with. It goes from governance, cooperative governance, well, sustainability, we don't really need that word if we are fully, deeply aligned cooperatives with what we're meant to be.
Thank you, Karen. Let's jump now to the 4 P's of governance, which are known as purpose, people, process, and performance. How is sustainability moving into each of the P's? And since Karen's on the roll, we'll ask her to take on the first one, purpose.
All right, I'll just pull in the purpose one as quickly as I can. But just this idea that, again, if we're an aligned cooperative organization, many of us being financial cooperatives as our mindset here, but that's in the co-op family, right? As consumer cooperatives, credit unions, SACCOs, or whichever other word globally we use, that our purpose is naturally complex. Unlike, say, a profit-maximizing corporation that might think, well, I just have to maximize profit. And then, yes, I'm trying to do sustainability, so I have to care about these other things. We don't come at it that way. We have a complex purpose. We're already trying to balance social, economic, and environmental. So that triple bottom line kind of mindset and complexity mindset and paradigm should come naturally to us. One other aspect I would flag when we think about our purpose is we set purposes that should be thinking at an intergenerational scale. We're not just thinking in the here and now. And again, back to the idea of don't just think about your one organization, but think about the purpose of the system of cooperatives trying to build a cooperative economy. So, just again, quickly using Van City as one example, we've been highlighting them the last day or so, but when you think about their vision, say AKA purpose, they have economic, environment, and social screaming from their simple purpose statement as a transformed economy that protects the earth and guarantees equity for all. So just as one example, that transformational, that complex, that long-term thinking, that bold. That's what I see as the kind of purpose we have.
Thanks again, Karen. Now we can jump to Sonia and take the people part of the governance.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I'll just come back and build upon what Karen mentioned at the beginning, where like co-ops, it's all about the people, and it's the same at the governance level. So I think sustainability and climate, it's all about the people. And when I engage with corporate boards, with credit union, a lot of people are like, oh, who's responsible for this? Who's accountable for this? Well, technically, it is a whole board who's accountable for sustainability and climate-related matters. However, if you don't know where to start, you just need, I always say, like one climate champion at the board level to really drive things forward. And then, like, slowly you'll build that capacity and knowledge at the whole board, because everyone needs to have some sort of like knowledge and skills. But and this people aspect just trickles down throughout the whole co-op model, whether it's ops, finance department, HR, et cetera, et cetera.
Thanks, Sonia. And Dennis, what can you tell us about performance?
Well, for us, performance is impact. Impact on community, impact on members, impact on employees. How we measure that impact, that performance metric that we put in place at the board level, is part of that ongoing commitment. So, just I think yesterday there was mention of a balanced scorecard as that metric for performance. We've done the same thing, and we've integrated environmental performance in the past as part of that balanced scorecard, where we do know or can see or are driven to achieve results. Right now, we've pulled it away because we're in the midst of a large merger, and so the emphasis is on successful integration of 3 credit unions, but acknowledging that there are impacts related to that, and that we will again embrace environmental performance in a go-ahead way once we've fully integrated, because we have lots to understand about all 3 of us as becoming one organization. But that key point is as was mentioned yesterday, was measure, manage, see things get done. And so we track impact, environmental impact, but also community impact. It is a critical component of where we're going.
Thanks, Dennis. We have one P left, process, and who would want to take that one on?
Okay, maybe I can say about processes, like when we engage with board and like the things that we discuss is like what kind of governance structure I should have if I want to tackle climate sustainability issues, what kind of processes I should put into place. So these are the things that are super crucial at the governance level if you want to make sure that like the climate sustainability is always on the agenda, for example. So that is what I would say on process, but I don't know if my...
Well, that was a great response, because I was going to go to how when we are thinking about, I say the royal we being the international center, and we're talking about cooperative governance, we are thinking about governance as a system, and that system of governance, we then lean into structures and processes and dynamics, both internal and external. And there's a lot of external dynamics that then play into the both structures and processes that we need to be a bit nimble with when we're trying to achieve sustainability. But I would just, on that process side, emphasize that those processes, if we're a aligned cooperative, we should be looking at engagement of members and participatory process and thinking about our governance system. I always often will repeat, it's not just your board and your AGM and your elections process in a democratic system that is member-centered from the perspective of engagement and their rights, role, and responsibility in the governance of the organization. I think that often gets lost and left to the side when we talk about governance in co-ops, and then these important topics, like how are we pulling our membership in to their rights and role and responsibility for these things.
Thanks, Karen. And Sonia, now we're going to jump to another question. And we'll ask Dennis and Sonia to take on this one. Where are we at this moment in sustainability, in sustainable governance, and what trends are you seeing? Is sustainability finding a place on busy agendas? Why should sustainability be top of mind?
What I see is this sort of growing emphasis on disclosure, and we've had, we've definitely had conversations, and speakers already talk about this. The panel a couple back was, really focused on that component of disclosure. But I think the core of it is disclosure is coming. It's no longer, we are in a voluntary compliance, a voluntary area for most credit unions, but recognizing that getting ahead of it and understanding it is really, really critical. So building board awareness, and this is where I think Sonia can probably add lots more to the conversation, but definitely that idea of disclosure, new standards emerging, and kind of the responsibility that boards have to the members to ensure that they are aware of and moving forward on and engaging with executives to move that direction.
I think what I'll say is that I think we hear a lot about NT, ESG, sustainability. There's a lot of noise right now, but I think what are the deeper trends? And this is what we need to ask ourselves as a board. And the deeper trends is like sustainability is not going away, ESG is not going away. We've heard it just today, and I'm sure you've heard it also yesterday. Right now, there's COP30, but just before, there was the United Nations Principle for Responsible Investment summit at Sao Paulo as well, where like hundreds and thousands of investors are thinking and like discussing how can I invest responsibly. So this is still going. Yesterday, actually, I saw a graphic in the Les Echos, which is a French newspaper, that was showing the trends in terms of like in the annual reports, impact reports, sustainability, ESG reports, what terms are we using? So we have seen a decrease in the using of the term ESG, but we have seen an increase with the terms impact and sustainability. And today we're here to talk about sustainability. So this is definitely something that we need to keep in mind, especially for the board. So it's not going away. And we see it already, like with, I speak from the Canadian perspective, but Karen mentioned Vincent Desjardins also is like doubling down on sustainability and climate. So it's not, definitely not going away. Just need to remain focused on how can I serve my members, what's beneficial for my members.
Great, thank you. Karen, what is the first step in effective sustainable governance for credit unions to consider, and who on teams and roles you need to assemble to advise the board?
Okay, we'll see if my answer answers the questions. Something that I want to maybe lean into is one of the other principles, which is education, Principle 5, education, training, and information. I would suggest that both who sits around your senior leadership tables and who sits around your board tables and perhaps other structures you have in place to engage other members beyond just a small set at the board, how well would they score on their understanding of the cooperative enterprise model? Because I had said that from my perspective, that's the starting point to whether you can do sustainable anything, whether you can be a deeply sustainability focused organization, because that should come naturally. And that's something that is, especially in our work with the International Center, we're really focused on trying to level up management and governance expertise and understanding of the model, that it's a weak area. So just because you sit around the table of a credit union board or a co-op board does not mean that you actually know as much as you need to about that. So I'd sort of start there to figure out, are you investing in cooperative education and cooperative governance understanding? Because without that, you're never going to get very far. You're not going to be a strong credit union or co-op, and then you're going to have a hard time on the sustainability front. We keep saying sustainability, but because we've talked about all of these topics, we're talking about everything from affordable housing to, equity, to living wage, to, it's not just the, climate, it's all of these very messy things together. So the segue for me with that is, when one word I don't hear us talking enough about when we just, again, even when I'm talking about the cooperative enterprise model and cooperative governance, is our relationship with complexity. Like, do we understand, are we comfortable with complex systems thinking? Because you need that around your governance tables and you need that in your management. If we're trying to be linear and reductionist, it's not going to work. And so I think that that's a whole other skill set that we need to take seriously, both complexity and uncertainty and not knowing how we're going to get where we know we need to go. And that's not a comfortable space for a lot of people, and you need to have people that are comfortable with that, in my view. So those are a few thoughts.
Thanks, Karen. Sonia, you work with corporate boards and policymakers on making informed decisions on climate. What challenges, if any, do boards face when implementing sustainable finance, and how are boards overcoming any roadblocks?
That is a super good question. I think it will be a bit related to what I said just before, and what Karen said is the main challenges that I've seen in the past year or so is definitely navigating the uncertainty around whether it's like regulation, climate policies. We've talked about greenwashing just before this morning. How do board need to think about this and what is relevant for them, what is material to them? So this is definitely something that like has been top of mind. That is not part of the credit union so much, but I will say that like for companies, a lot of companies are trying to figure out also what investors are asking for in terms of like, if like an investor investing in a company, what they would like to know. So these are the main things that like boards at the moment, at least in Canada, I wouldn't want to say probably like across the world, are thinking about and making sense of all this noise. So what do you do about it? I think I'll build upon Karen's comment about education. Education is super, super key because the policy development, methodologies, we talk about like PCAF and finance emission, all of these things, the frameworks are evolving super fast in sustainable finance. So it's really hard to keep up. Like I do this day to day and it is hard to know what's happening every single day. So if you're at the board and you have all these different issues and challenges that we have seen in the past year, I think education is key. And one thing that I also say to people in board when I engage with them is like one education session is not sufficient. You're not going to be on top of everything and you're not supposed to be an expert, right? And then the Canadian law is clear. We have commissioned a legal opinion on directors' duties with respect to climate. You're not supposed to be an expert in everything. You can rely on external expertise, but you do need to have a good understanding to make informed decision. So having continuous education, relying and working with external expert on different matters that are materials to your board and your credit union is super important.
Thank you, Sonia. Dennis, please provide us with an example of your credit union's sustainable governance strategy. How did you work with your CEO and the board to bring about change?
You know, in my role, the influence that I have on governance strategy is limited, but the opportunities have come to me to assist with developing enterprise risk management related to climate risk. And so going kind of back to that informed kind of positions, creating, you know, sort of the initial understanding of what our risk exposure would look like and how the board should be addressing it and actions that they can take in the future has been, I think, useful for me to be part of. You know, it's an internal kind of positioning, but it does have a, you know, an external impact. I think we are still very, we're maturing into this, and so creating that understanding for our board is really, really vital. And even just you know, being able to say this is now part of our ERM process has been, I think, valuable, and you know, it's moved the needle forward for us.
Thanks for sharing, Dennis. I can provide some insight on this one as well. We have formed a green committee at the credit union, which reports monthly to the board on all of the activities. And that committee has also access to a budget. So whatever recommendations come forth can be executed. So, Sonia, providing resources on sustainability is critical to defining the path forward. You just launched a guide in partnerships with the Canadian Credit Union Association for credit unions to help them navigate the climate, legal, and regulatory landscape. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we published this guide with CCOA, I think it was 2 years ago. It is still very much relevant, although it was 2 years ago. And this guide is really aims to put together in a concise way all the information that at the board level and people who advise the board or even C-suite should think about and should know when it comes to very much specific to climate governance. So we do outline what are their legal duties, what are the Canadian law it is based on, what are the regulations that are relevant to them, and making the business case of why the board of credit union should think about climate. I think, as we've mentioned this, just before, credit unions' mission are very much aligned with climate, integrating sustainability from the get-go, from the start. Credit union have a democratic approach and a close relationship to members. So I think this is something that we do bring forward in that guide, and we provide at the end of the guide a checklist to ask good question, because as a board member, you do need to ask questions to your management, and we provide some sort of guidance. So I would encourage everyone to look at this guide, even though you may not be a Canadian credit union. I think some of these questions would probably be very much relevant to you.
Thanks, Sonia. Dennis, yes, please tell us what has been your experience working with the tool.
I was going to, because it's been a great experience. Just chomping at the bit to share. We've actually used CCLI expertise a couple of times now in board sessions, and it's been, I mean, the breadth of and depth of the expertise available is impressive. The level of information that they've been able to share has, I think, really brought our board a long way in understanding both what their responsibilities are, but also as much as possible, the current regulatory environment and where things might be headed, some of the challenges that we face in trying to understand that. We had a wonderful half-day session a while back with not only CCLI experts, but we brought in some local experts to talk about just what is climate change, and then some more context setting related to kind of the global negotiations and how that trickles down to local decisions. And I think all of it was really, really critical. What I think we have to continue to do is pursue that type of education, because we have board turnover happening as well. And we've identified climate knowledge as something that board members should have or be willing to get through the process of being on the board. And we want to continue to rely on that type of expertise that's available. And I believe there is, through the Canadian Credit Union Association, there is some new materials being developed with CCLI for boards, but also for executive and management within credit unions. So that's an exciting, I think, opportunity as well for us to take advantage of.
Great. Thanks for sharing that experience, Dennis. Karen, is it younger board members the ones really advancing sustainability?
This is like a trick question. Well, I guess everyone should look in the mirror. Do you actually have young board members? So, depending on the answer to that, you would know whether you even could answer the question, because it is one of the struggles in like the cooperative sector writ large, more so. In a lot of cases, we're not making space for those to come in. And whether they're young or not, I suppose I'm not ageist when it comes to who should be advancing sustainability, who should be leading, who should be at the table. As someone that, like all of us, was once young and has been really in the deep sustainability mindset since the mid-1990s, when I was younger and on board, starting 20 plus years ago, of course I brought those ideas forward. I won't name a name, but someone I used to sit on the board of the Canadian Co-operative Association, that's what it was called before its current naming of Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada, a leader in sustainability, like myself at that time, and quite dismissed when it came to advancing that leadership. So this is 15 years ago. So I think now, as we all are gradually, or hopefully rapidly, embracing the importance of this, that it doesn't matter your age, advancing sustainability needs to be something that we're all pushing for all of the time. But I would maybe build in this idea of who is there considering these topics and helping to advance it. Do we have a diversity of thought at the table, a diversity of experiences? Are we layering in intersectionality? We don't all have the same group think about these things. So that's some of what's important, but I think it's also a challenge. You can't around the table get all of the deep knowledge. You have to rely on expertise to come in, because the range of knowledge needed, from climate to housing crisis to disadvantaged communities to indigenous reconciliation to, the list goes on, poverty, energy insecurity. Like, there's so many issues, and there are all these areas of technical knowledge. So we also need to kind of narrow in on like our sweet spots as organizations to be able to then advance it. So that's my take. We all have a role. Don't layer it on the youth, right? Like, why should we be burdening them with this intergenerational problem? Because even all of us, we inherited this. This is something that's been going on and predates us, and then we need to build towards the future.
Thanks, Karen. We know we are competing against lunch, so I'm going to try to wrap this up. The question is, for all of the panelists, doing well to do good from a governance perspective means in one sentence. Sonia?
I'm the lucky one who's starting. I thought about it quite a bit. I wasn't sure, like in one sentence, it's quite hard to say. But I'll say something that is maybe relevant mostly for people who haven't started thinking about sustainability and climate, which is just having an open conversation and putting it on the agenda, which sounds simple, but I think, although I think we made the case that if you're really aligned with the co-op model and values, you should be integrating sustainability and climate. I just want to make it clear, if you haven't, for some reasons, start to put it on the agenda. Have this open discussion at the board level is success. And it's a journey. It's not like, don't let the perfect be enemy of the good to start. And that is super important when we talk to whether it's like credit union, financial services organization, or any companies, when we talk about climate governance.
Great. Karen?
Yes, this is kind of a tricky question. So one sentence, I think that I would just again remind us of that intergenerational nature. I was wanting to pull in, that is part of our model. So sometimes here, at least in Canada, we're looking to Indigenous teachings and two-eyed seeing, but also the sort of 7 generations philosophy from Indigenous folks. But I know that that's also meant to be our philosophy, and then pulling on a few things Leon brought in, the Sankofa, the past to plot the future, or the Leon Sullivan, create good trouble. So it's having some of these taglines and reminders about, where we need to go and the way we need to be thinking, and long-term thinking's key.
Dennis?
Yeah, this is a hard one. I think, it really comes down to there is no substitute for good governance. That will drive you forward, and you will achieve, what you need to do, and you will have the impact that you want to have, but it has to be supported by good governance, and good governance embraces everything we've talked about. I was out last night with some friends that we were talking about substitutes for different things, and I don't think many people are aware that there is a substitute for eggs called aquafaba, but there is no substitute for good governance. So it was a challenge.
I will stay to one sentence. Long-term institutional sustainability, to me. That's what it means. Maybe take about a few seconds and give us one insight before we leave.
I'm the one who's starting again. What insight? Well, there's so much to say. I will say, maybe very biased, don't forget that, like a corporate board, you have legal duties to act in the best interest of your member and the long-term resiliency of your credit union, which means you should think and incorporate climate and sustainability. So that may be my last word.
Well, one word is, I know there's a slide that will go up sharing resources from our center. So, cue the slide. There's lots to learn. That's all I want to say. We will never know enough. Be humble and know that you can't bring ego into this question of good cooperative governance, because most of us weren't born into cooperation from the cooperative system perspective, and we still need to keep digging deep and learning.
I would say draw from your peers. Look to the networks that of support that you have. CCUA has a great climate action working group, and there's United in Sustainability. What can we learn from one another, and how do we use that to move forward?
To me, just say that if you can take one of the ideas or anything that you learned in this summit today and implement that at your institution and report back next year, we feel that we accomplish something. And I want to close by one quote by Henry Ford. It says, "The activist is not one who says the river is dirty. The activist is the one who cleans up the river." Thank you very much for your attention and time.